Welcome to Season 1, Episode 2 of the Radical Narrative Podcast. We received some amazing feedback from Episode 1, so be sure to like and subscribe us and share our social media. We want to gather as much listeners as we can to this podcast. Today, for Episode 2, I'm sitting down with Jade Tootoosis. In recent years, Jade Tootoosis has been a symbol of perseverance across Canada and the world for her work with the Justice For Colten campaign. A few months ago, we took time during the pandemic lockdowns to sit down with Jade and highlight who she is on the individual level and on the person level, and more importantly, to talk about insights and awarenesses that she has had in recent years as a result of her work. Listen in as I sit down with Jade and talk with my sister about growing up together, the transboundary powwow world, Justice For Colten, and the work the world needs. Well, thanks for sitting with me and agreeing to do this podcast. I've been trying to contact you for a while about it, and this podcast started months ago, but we never actually got it off the ground, and we're still trying to get off the ground simply because we always have to replan it. But because of COVID-19, we're just going to launch it lockdown style and do these phone interviews and these FaceTime audio interviews with people.
No, this is cool. I'm happy you asked, and we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, one of the whole reasons why I wanted to have a conversation with you is because in all reality, you have been pretty public in the forefront with a lot of issues the past few years. We're not going to talk about that. And that's the whole goal of this, is just to get to know you and have a conversation about you, because I feel like people know who you are now, but they really don't know who you are. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, no, that makes sense. A lot of the things that I speak out on aren't about just me. So I tend not to talk about myself. I tend, like being seen as a spokesperson for my family or a spokesperson on specific issues. It's not about the individual that's speaking. It's about a collective. So this is definitely a different type of conversation, and I'm nervous and excited.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's the whole method to the madness, is I did want to have this conversation with you of just talking story and visiting one another. And we've done it in the past, and we'll probably do it again, because we always have to explain our relationship and our kinship. And we could finally dedicate some time now to explaining that in our words in as much time as we want, because we've always been forced to explain it in 1 minute to people. It never really makes sense to people.
I always laugh about the time we went to Italy, and they called me out on it. They're like, okay, is Mylan your brother or your brother-in-law? The confusion.
And we're like, both? And they're all looking at Lyle real weird, like, what?
Yeah.
So for people who are listening in and don't know the background to me and Jade, we are related, and our kinship's really unique because we did grow up together. We did grow up in the powwow circle together, and my late father adopted her as a daughter. Mm-hmm. So she became my sister through adoption. And then my older cousin Lyle, who's not on the podcast right now, but we should probably get him in the future, decided to fall in love with her and marry her. So she's also technically my sister-in-law, but my adopted sister. Right? Is that the way we could explain it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's as clear as it can be. It's always funny explaining kinship terms to anybody, especially to non-Indigenous people, because they have that Western mentality that there's distinct roles and you can only be one thing and not another. And it throws people out.
Exactly. And that's sort of been our struggle, in terms of you and I doing the work that we do together, and just always trying to explain that to people has been an issue.
Yeah.
So if you want to, you don't necessarily have to, but you could go ahead and introduce yourself in your own way. If not, we could just continue with this sort of general rolling conversation.
Yeah, no, totally. So my name is Jade Tootoosis. I am the daughter of Tony Brown and Christine Baptiste. On my mom's side, my grandparents are the late Victor Denny from Rocky Boy and Verna Baptiste from Red Pheasant. And on my dad's side, my late grandfather was Lyle Shy Brown the Salish Kootenai and Flathead. And my grandmother was Georgina Smith. She was from the San Francisco area. And I am the eldest of 4 direct siblings. I have 2 younger brothers, Devin and Skylar, and I have a baby sister. Her name is Mariah. And then I have so many cousins that growing up, you know, we didn't call each other cousins. We call each other brothers and sisters. And I'm just, I'm very well, like, I love my family. They're the most important people to me. And then through my adoption through family, just from growing up on the powwow trail and round dance, and I have just connections all across Turtle Island. So I identify as a Nihiao Squayo from the Red Pheasant Cree Nation. And I also work for the University of Alberta. I currently work for the Faculty of Native Studies.
Nice.
That's me.
Yeah, and that was the next question. The next question was, what do you do? So you're at the Faculty of Native Studies, University of Alberta, but that's your job. So what else do you do? Like, what else is your whole, passion right now, just in terms of how you're living your life?
Well, currently self-isolated in Edmonton. During this COVID crisis, this is a trip, man. Like I never thought I would live during a global pandemic. So being at home, luckily, I'm also a seamstress. I love to sew ribbon skirts. I love making powwow outfits. So hoarding a lot of fabric and ribbon over the past years is totally kicking in right now.
Yeah, totally. So you're doing a lot of sewing right now in isolation, and how's that unfolding for you? Like, any cool projects or anything you're uncovering right now? Are you doing the mask thing that people are doing?
I haven't made a mask that I am happy with yet. I've made a few different demos and different styles, but I haven't found one that I'm comfortable with. And I know a few family and friends have inquired for one in the city, because I think it's about helping us and reminding us not to touch our face or our mouth area while we go out in public. It's not necessarily stopping bacteria, but I think it's a good reminder when we go out. And so I haven't yet made a face mask that I'm happy with, but we're currently working on Lyle's outfit. I was gonna say he's gonna jam summer 2020, but even powwows, that's an uncertainty if we'll be gathering this summer.
Yeah, a lot of cancellations and things like that, but that's awesome. Lyle's going to dance again. That's cool.
What about you? Are you going to dance again?
I'm ready to go. Yeah, I'm on a dance, and we've sort of just been kicking ourselves in the butt because we wanted to this summer. That was our plan, and we were going to go visit Wakia's family and do Oklahoma again. But yeah, everything's sort of on lockdown and isolation, so gives me a few more months for sure to get in shape. But I feel like I've been in okay shape.
No quarantine specials?
No quarantine specials. I mean, I'm too big and heavy to dance inside. There's still snow outside. So yeah, we have to wait for it to warm up, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, same in the city here. It's like puddles galore everywhere. So, plus I won't lie, I'm getting fluffier during this quarantine. I can't seem to stop eating. So,
yeah, I mean, there's definitely a whole bunch of habits that we're developing too right now, and a lot of carbs that we're eating. And yeah, we need to get out more, but it's warming up here finally. So we're going to probably take more walks in the little town we live in.
Yeah, you guys live way out in the boonies though. So
yeah, we do. Part of this whole podcast was sort of just to keep me busy, but also to kind of speak to that dynamic that you did mention on, because you are from this area, you are from transboundary, sort of United States, American prairie life dynamic also. Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of people don't realize how rural Saskatchewan is and how unique the dynamics are out here. And I think we sort of come to the awareness that we need to talk about this a bit more over the past few years, because yeah, we have a unique existence out here. And I mean, I'm home for sure, but it is out in the middle of nowhere. It is rural Saskatchewan. So,
and not that, like thinking about everything, looking at rural Saskatchewan and the dynamics in the communities with Indigenous and settler folks, like all of a sudden we're expected to all unite together and support one another. And, I don't know what it's like for you out where you're at, but I know, like just speaking from the urban center, being in Edmonton, I feel, well, just from my experience going out, I'm always used to people either walking around me or distancing themselves from me already, but I can see it's a trip for people who are not so much used to it.
Yeah, for sure. I agree, because I feel like a lot of people do forget that there are political and social issues still in play. And that doesn't really go anywhere, even though people are isolating and people are trying to unite to fight COVID-19, its spread. I mean, there's definitely still real concerns about our communities and the relationship with settlers in general. And that's still on my radar. I know people aren't really talking much about it, but I know it's definitely still out there, a lot of tensions and things like that. And it's kind of ironic because there is this dynamic where settlers, in particular in rural Saskatchewan, do have this assumption that natives are receiving handouts and they are receiving financial aid through their taxes. But ironically now, they're all scrambling to get some sort of funding or some sort of grant or some sort of stimulus money because they are kind of experiencing the struggle now.
Yeah. I laugh at the fact that, people have to stay home or they have to even try to survive off minimal groceries and different things. And I'm like, well, that's kind of how I grew up already. Like survival mode has always been something.
Yep, totally.
It's been apparent, but I still feel for those families transition. These are some weird, unprecedented times. People keep using unprecedented. We're just figuring it out as we go.
Yeah, totally. And it is a big adjustment for some people in general, and a big adjustment for people who don't necessarily know what it's like to have to be on lockdown, so to speak. And I did have some conversations with people, and I think it came up with another person I podcasted where it's a struggle not to go into town because living on the reserve, going to town's the big thing, right? It's like your weekly trip to town. So now there's even like more isolation on top of isolation.
Well, I don't know. Living in Edmonton, we still have all the extra things. We have Skip the Dishes, we have Uber Eats, we have things that deliver. And just from my opinion, with the economic crisis of the entire world, people, if you have a job at this moment, you're very privileged to have employment during this time. So will people risk, telling their bosses that they don't feel well at the risk of losing their job? They might just push through, go to work, and not even know what's going on and get others sick. So I know we might be one of more the extreme families in the city, but we don't even eat out. We literally just stay home and cook and do dishes 24/7.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we're definitely on the same boat where like we're not taking any chances, just erring on the side of caution. Because it just seems like people don't really know. Like there's always like information that comes out, and then there's always like contrary information that comes out. Like, do you do gloves or don't do gloves? Do you wear a mask or don't wear a mask? And it's just like it's always changing. So we really don't watch the news now. We just sort of just like chill and get through like isolation by not interacting with anybody other than our immediate family and by not really keeping up with what's going on.
Yeah. Well, the thing that makes me happy at the moment is I literally have a full-on cooked breakfast every day.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Usually I'm too tired, too much in a rush to get to work and so forth, and the commute in the city that I rarely ate breakfast. So now it's been quite nice to have breakfast every day.
Yeah, we're kind of cooking meals, and well, my daughter's 11 months now. She's going to be a year on the 3rd, so we're going to have an isolation party. But we're always sitting at the table now and eating. Like that's something that my partner, Walwakia Jane, really wanted to establish was dinner time with the family. So we've been doing that breakfast and dinner, basically, sometimes just lunch and dinner. But yeah, we're setting up meals and eating really wholeheartely now as a family.
Yeah.
But we kind of reached the point now where we're tired of dishes. So we're just like communal eating on the cutting board. And I sent you that picture of like all the foods on the cutting board, and we're just eating with our hands because it's like we don't want to do more dishes.
Oh, see, that's the biggest thing I'm missing in all of this right now is I'm missing my nieces and my nephews. Like, I miss them. Like they're the things that give me reason and purpose to do anything that I'm doing, whether it's sewing, making sure that I can dress them accordingly for ceremony and hopefully teach them those skills and the knowledge that I have to, even speaking out, being able to instill courage and be able to show them what they're capable of when they get older. And so at this point, they're my good medicine. They're always my good medicine there. And so now, especially with my nieces in the city, in order to keep them safe and keep them well, Lyle and I don't get to see them. We don't get to hug them or hold them. Actually visit with them at the window of their apartments. And, it's the hardest thing is not being able to, like they'll put their hands literally on the screen, like they'll push the screen and be yelling, Ani, uncle, like, cause they can't pronounce the words clearly just yet, but they'll put their hands on the screen and they'll push, and, all I want to do is like reach out and touch their hand. But in order to protect them, I know that I shouldn't, because the only way they're going to get sick is they're going to get it from somebody who is going on the outside. And that's, that's us when we go to grocery stores and leave our apartment building even. So I think that's literally been the hardest thing is missing my nieces, my nephews, and not being able to actually hold them and embrace them and, to look at them. I mean, social media is helping out. I can definitely video chat with them and FaceTime and send them funny pictures and snaps, but it's not the same. The energy is not there.
Yeah, for sure. That's a really big challenging aspect of this for I think everybody, because even with my mom and my sister JoJo, who are at home on the reserve, and it's only 10 minutes away, and we're sitting here with my daughter too, there's a big emotional gap in our ability to be together. So ongoing struggle for sure.
Yeah, my niece is 5, Ariana, and she's like, come in. I'm like, oh, I can't come in. There's people that are sick, trying to explain it to a 5-year-old. And she's so smart. She'll just call it right out. She's like, are you sick? I'm like, no. Well, come in then. I'm like, no, it's best that I stay out here, and trying to make her understand. But at the same time, I can tell she misses us and we miss her. And, it's tough. I think it's hard for anyone that's missing family or friends right now, because especially for us as Indigenous people, we're such an interactive and communal type of people. We laugh together and we feed off that energy. I refer to it as medicine. It's medicine to be around one another, and to be told not to be able to do that right now for the safety and well-being of others. I know I'm feeling it, that's for sure.
And at the same time, it almost seems like we really took, I feel like Indian country, in particular, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Treaty 6 territory and this area really took isolation seriously right away. I think people didn't want to risk it and just, isolated, and reserves did the lockdowns right away. And I kind of feel that's also a part of our history coming out, where it's we know stuff like this has happened in the past, so we want to keep everyone safe. So let's take it serious.
No, I'm happy that, our nations stepped up and took it serious right away. I think there's a lot of learning, especially from what I can see in my own community in terms of communications. And like I said, the unprecedented, I keep that word sticks with me, unprecedented times that we're, figuring this out as we go, because I don't think we were super prepared for this, but but we also understand, like, especially as Indigenous people, we've combated chemical, warfare when it came to smallpox and things like that. I feel like we're quick to react because we know the damage and the danger that it brings.
Yeah, totally. I agree. So what is it? You said something really interesting earlier that people probably listened to and heard, but we didn't really elaborate on, is that we traveled to Italy together. So we did travel the world in some aspects together. What is it you do? Like how did sort of this trip to Italy sort of unfold for you? Because you have been pretty global the past few years, but you were also kind of global even before everything kind of went down with people wanting to request your presence.
So, well, you mentioned as well, like we grew up together. We grew up on the powwow trail. That's how our kinship started. And being a fancy shawl dancer, like I grew up dancing. I grew up dancing fancy shawl. So literally all my life. And as such, that's probably one of the things that I love most to share, is to talk about fancy shawl dancing, talk about what powwow has done for me, for my family, and being able to share aspects of the culture that I know. And I always say, like, I know very little. So I don't know a lot. I'm still learning. I think we're always still learning. So I like sharing the little that I do know. And I was given an opportunity to do a cultural exchange, to go to Italy with my friend Bo Convin. And I never thought I would travel to Italy and share fancy shawl dancing, but the Italians, they love Indians. So
yeah, they do. Yeah, totally.
And it was one of the things that it was a big learning curve, because being here in Turtle Island, I can speak and explain things a lot more in depth and detail. But when I went to Italy with the communication barrier, I had to explain things in a way that was broken down a little bit, I guess, simpler in terms, so that the translator could translate and communicate on my behalf. So that was interesting. And then they asked for a fancy bustle dancer. They wanted a warrior dancer. And so I was like, well, who would maybe come to Italy with me?
Yeah. Who's traveled before and done, is capable of navigating.
I'm like, maybe Mylan will want to go. I'll see if you'll want to come check it out. So I was happy you were able to come scope out Italy.
Yeah, that was a fun little trip that sort of just came, even in my life at that point when you asked me to go. I think my dad just passed away a few months before, the year before. So yeah, I seized the opportunity and we met some amazing people, David, and he got to show us the behind the scenes of some Roman ruins, which was a really unique experience. Really informed my work in general.
Yeah, I messaged with some of the coordinators still, like, even because Italy got hit hard by this virus.
Yeah.
And so I just checked in with them and still in communication. And a lot of the people that I've made friends with in Italy, they're just staying home and staying well, and yeah, they're doing well.
Yeah, I met two friends that I have on Facebook too while we went and did that gig. And one of them actually came to visit me, Carlo Oldani, and he is from Bergamo, so his community was hit pretty hard by COVID. But he messaged in like early on to tell us, yeah, this is pretty bad and you guys should get ready. So I kind of owe it to him to like lighting the fire under my feet to buy a little bit of extra food, get ready for isolation, and get everything in order, because he was sort of calling the shots. Well, he was calling the plays while they were happening over there, and you could kind of see that, yeah, it's going to get here and it's going to blow up.
Well, that's good you had contacts like that. For me, I know when the news came out of a pandemic, it was hard to know if it was serious or, like, are we overreacting? It was really like a lot of uncertainty. So I hope your friends over there are doing well.
Yeah, he's doing good. It sounded like him and his mom left the city, and he works at like a ranch in the mountains, so they kind of just isolated there so he could still work in a rural part of Italy, and it is pretty safe. We did just touch base recently, but it was pretty cool how he contacted us, because he did meet a lot of my uncles and my aunties out here on Palmaker, because he did come visit us, and he was all like, hey, you guys need to make sure that all the old people are safe, because in Italy it was sort of targeting the older generation. And he highlighted that really early. So I touched base with my family, and I said, Carlo has this inkling that it's probably going to get bad over here too, so we should start taking this serious. So it was really cool how he reached out, because I think we really did sort of like show him some of our prairie life stuff, and he really learned a lot and took a lot of knowledge, well, not knowledge, but took sort of deepened his own experience with life just by hanging out with us for a summer. So yeah, that was really cool.
Well, that's good, because there's such a romanticization still of Indigenous people when it comes to people in Europe, anywhere in Europe. Yeah. So the fact that he got to come and spend time at home with you guys and actually connect and see what the livelihood is like that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, he did get a lot of big like social political stuff. I think he was kind of coming thinking that, we're going to be riding a bunch of horses and things like that and hunting, but we didn't get to do any of that. It was basically just like he got to see me in academia. I think he actually came to one of my lectures on campus. So he was like, oh man, there's so much like issues you guys have. And I was like, yeah, man, it's a bit different when you look at the modernity of being Indigenous here.
Oh my God. So when we were in Italy, I remember one of the people like, you can ride horses over here and this and that. And I'm like, oh, well, I'm scared of horses. Like, I don't ride horses. I'm scared of them. And they're like, what kind of Indian are you? You don't ride horses. And I always laugh. So this one time I was with my cousins down in Rocky Boy, and we have a lot of wild horses that run around there. And I think it was during the powwow, we saw a wild horse, and we had some like carrots and apples from camp. And so we were able to get that horse like near us as we were feeding it. And they're like, I dare you to jump on that horse, Jade. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that. No problem. Just be able to bring it closer to the fence. So sure enough, I jumped on that horse and I held on for dear life to its hair, because it bucked and it took off. And I'm just screaming, and there's literally nothing I could do but just bail, like holy. Yeah. And so I was like, never again will I ride a horse.
Yeah, totally. It's really interesting in Italy too, how like I did talk to Carlo about this, and he's not like a historian or anything like that. He's just an Italian kid who grew up, seeing Indians on the movies and things like that. But he really highlighted something really interesting to me, and I think David did too, where he said that one of the main comic books in Italy is of a cowboy and an Indian who are working together to sort of do good in the Wild West. And he highlighted how in Germany or in Czech Republic and those countries, there's another character, Winnetou or something like that, some comic character where the reader is reading those books being an Indian. So it's like in Germany, there's like this wanting to replicate native culture and be Indian, whereas in Italy it was a really unique experience where they were more like wanting to observe and support native culture. And I think it was David and Carlo who highlighted these books and said, yeah, it's a really different dynamic here, because we do see that in other parts of Europe people want to become Indian, whereas here we sort of just want to support and help you guys with whatever issues you're facing. And maybe it's like a little subconscious thing. Maybe I should do a podcast with them about it, because I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I pointed out to the organizers that invited us at the time was I think they really appreciated the insights that each of us brought, because we didn't just talk about powwow or dancing or culture. We talked about the political issues and the things going on at home. And even when Justice for Colten came up, the organizers who invited us, they're called Hankapi. They have a magazine, like an online magazine that they print, and they wrote an article on Justice for Colten, and they even put in their association's letter of support that they sent to the Prime Minister and other officials here in Canada in terms of, calling out the injustice that that my family went through and that other Indigenous nations are experiencing. But they did that just based on, their reaction to what was going on. And I thought that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it totally was. And I do remember them on Facebook and things like that, really being like politically active with that time and some of the issues we were going through over here. So that was really cool to have like some international solidarity from Italy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it still feels like I know they're really struggling right now, and my prayer, like I'm praying for them constantly, but at the same time, it still feels like Italy's obtainable. Like we could go there and visit, and that we have this dynamic and friendship with a lot of them.
Yeah. Agree.
Yeah. And you also highlighted something unique. I think that a lot of people, I feel, don't realize with in natives in Saskatchewan and even Alberta, it's that we have family and kinships in the U.S. also. And I think a lot of natives do, but one of the unique aspects that I find people overlook is that we're really transboundary people. Like you were just telling a story about how you were in Rocky Boy, you have family in Rocky Boy. So this prairie life dynamic is also very transboundary in terms of United States and Canada. We're going back and forth all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I laugh every time we cross the border, just driving across the border. Lyle's like, do you have your passport ready? I'm like, I have my status card. He's like, no, give me your passport. I'm like, no, I'll give you my status card. He's like, Jade, cause
Yeah.
you just know that, the guards at that medicine line there, they're uneducated when it comes, especially to the Dre Treaty and things like that. So depends on the mood I'm in. If I feel like I want to push back a little and educate somebody, I'll give them my status card. But if we're running late for grand entry and we got to get across that line real quickly, I'll have my passport on hand.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Same. We're the same way too. And it's always boils down to like having to educate a border guard sometimes. But a lot of POW people, a lot of Native people just, have really unique experiences going across the border and engaging that. And
it depends on the border you go through. Sometimes if if you're on your way to Rocky Boy, you go through these certain borders and they usually know when the powwow is going on. Like if I come through and I tell them we're going to Rocky Boy for the powwow, they're like, oh yeah, we had a lot of people go through already. So someone was ahead of me already that educated them. So it made way for me to go through a little bit faster.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then it's so funny too because they know when powwows are happening too. It's like going to the powwow right when you pull up.
Yeah, we flew to New Zealand this past spring, and that was a little bit of a different trip because when I travel, I travel with my medicine. I travel with my sage and my sweetgrass, and especially New Zealand, they're very particular on what can come into their island, into their country. So having to explain to them what sage was or what kind of sage it was, what it's used for, showing them. Like the guards that we met were very understanding and we were okay with our smudge, but I had a lot of anxiety because a lot of people made it out to be a real hardcore process. I mean, the US border guards were a lot more aggressive than New Zealand's. Yeah,
it's crazy. Especially as like a powwow dancer when you travel too, right? Because you got your beadwork, you got your feathers and bustles and things like that.
Mm-hmm. No, I really think powwow dancing, like being a fancy shawl dancer. I can dance in front of thousands of people, and no problem. It's just part of my spirit, and when I dance. But I laugh when people. I have a lot of trouble, and even with this, I don't like public speaking. Yeah. It blows people's minds. I was like, I can dance in front of thousands of people, no problem. But when it comes to speaking, I'm actually quite shy. I just share that because, for people who are also struggle with public speaking or aren't sure if they have a voice, I struggled with that of not, I said it took me a while to find my voice. I feel like those around us see good things in us. They see things in us that we might not see in ourselves. They might see gifts that we have before we even notice them. And they'll encourage us, slightly, nudge us in that direction. And so even with powwow, I ran for princess. I ran for princess probably several times. I've never won a crown, but part of running for princess is, it's not dancing. You have to be able to speak as well. And I always remember the time I ran for princess at a powwow out in British Columbia. And my Auntie Debbie, Colten's mother there, she was traveling to powwows with us at the time. And she helped me write my speech that day. And she got up, and our speeches were at like 7 a.m. at the powwow. So there was literally nobody awake to listen except for like the judges. But she got up with me, and she stood by, and she like would just like what do they call the pageant moms? She was standing off to the side reading the speech along with me. But it's interesting, like the direction that the things that happen in our lives growing up, and the way things turn out. And even now with Justice For Colten things, the fact that me and her are working together again, and to be in a position where we're spokespeople, and where she trusts my ability and has confidence in me to be able to do the speaking portion at times. It's just something I always remember her. She encouraged me then and believed in me then, and she does it now, even today, and it goes a long way. It's like a full circle type of thing happened.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's unique, because your message and your voice is basically international now. You're an international Indigenous figure, even if you don't want to admit it. But your name comes up a lot in the international community. People know who you are, and yeah, your voice is out there and it resonates with people. And that's probably why I wanted to have a conversation with you, because you do have to carry a message, and you do have to carry context for people always. And I kind of just want to ask the question of what pushes you to be Jade. Like I feel, well, simply because you do have to do so much work, and I feel like people don't really get to see and experience your drivers. Like, what's your core drive?
Well, I did speak about it a little bit earlier. It's my nieces. Like that's literally what keeps me grounded and makes me most happiest, is when I get to sit and just color with my nieces as they tell me about unicorns and just their favorite candies, or what mermaids like to eat, I like being able to make them outfits and ribbon skirts, and see them dancing to YouTube videos. And that's what makes me most happiest is my nieces. And when I say my nieces, like right now I'm talking about the little tiny ones, but even before this, I used to work in the education system. I worked within Edmonton Public Schools, and I supported Indigenous students. I was a First Nations, Métis, and Inuit liaison. And that role for me wasn't just a job. It was being able to give these young people what I needed when I was a young person. And that was to have a safe place, someone to confide in and get advice from, someone to laugh with and cry with. And eventually, over time, these students were no longer just students. They would come into my room and call me auntie. Yeah. And so I have a number of nieces and nephews out there that's who makes me happy. And I hope to give them, everything that I needed. But they, like, even during the Justice For Colten stuff, they would reach out to me and check on me and say, how are you doing? They made a Skittles and Pepsi care package for me. Like they expressed their love and support in ways that kept me going. And at the end of the day, it's, if I can show them what they're capable, if I can do it, they can do it. And that's something that, I believe in, because I see people who were here before me that, with our late dad Arson, the travels that he went on around the world, and the speaking ability and the compassion he had for community. Like, if he can do that, I know I can do the same thing. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting how, like, I feel that people who've had like an indigenous upbringing, not so much like even culturally or spiritually, but just being a part of the community, I feel that everybody who's a part of the community tends to dedicate some aspect of their life to helping our communities, especially our young people. Like, I feel our generation is really working to do like groundbreaking work with our young people and our family systems and our communities.
Well, my one auntie from Flathead area, she teased me. She said, I come from a long line of rebel rousers. You know, she talked about how my dad, when he was just like a junior boy, him and my late grandparents, they occupied Alcatraz.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So they were there when that went down.
They occupied Alcatraz. One of my other uncles worked with, I think, Marlon Brando. Would have been another person. So she was just sharing with me that I come from a long line of rebel rousers. And I even think of like on my mom's side, my cookums that survived residential schools. And I think every single one of them, even to this day, are so blunt and so honest and so bold in the way they communicate. And they instill that confidence in me and that strength. But at the same time, I love our kinship. I love kinship and the way it works amongst our nation. The fact that, you know, through adoption, we have family in so many spaces and places that we're never alone. You know, like there's people we can count on and lean on. And especially with the advocacy work when it comes to justice, I encountered things I never thought I would have to deal with in all of this. And a lot of it was knowing who I could trust and who was there, you know, to protect and to support me and what we're doing, as opposed to using the tragedy and the injustice that we were going through for other people's benefits or agendas.
Yeah, I guess I could ask a question about that. Like, we do know that Indian country has its issues and its problems, and politics, you know, they're everywhere, and those tend to come up in the podcasts I've done in the past too. What do you feel like? I don't want to talk about the issues because I feel like a lot of people can talk about the issues. Like, even in my career, my work is talking about colonialism and things. But what do you feel needs to happen? Like, what do you feel needs to happen for people to sort of become whole again? Because I know a lot of people are doing emotional work now. A lot of people are doing healthcare work in terms of physical fitness and working with young people. There's a big wave of that. And then from your experience, everything you've been through, what do you see needs to happen? I
think we need more women in leadership positions. Like, just, I guess, being a Nehiawa Esqueo myself, I encountered a lot of like patriarchal attitudes, and it was disheartening, and it made the work even more difficult, because having to explain, you know, the importance of compassion and support, but at the same time, for the men who are in those positions to trust a woman or even a young woman to do the work, it just added more to the work to have to justify, explain, push back, you know, and kind of battle with amongst ourselves. You know, we have enough fights out there in the world that we're taking on, but to fight amongst each other, it just adds more to the work. But I feel like if we had more women, if we could entrust, uplift, and encourage more of our women to hold those positions, those decision-making positions, like, you know, I think that's what we need to do, and that's something we should return back to.
Yeah, and just coming at it from my experience, there were some times when momentum was almost, people were trying to like co-opt the momentum of Justice for Colten and the respect of what your family and you wanted to do. And yeah, a lot of them were kind of like leadership dudes who kind of did have political agendas, and leadership in general were really politicizing a lot of the things when it wasn't really the time and space for it.
Yeah, it just added more work. And I think if we can make way for our women, and especially our young people, I think that we could start moving in a direction that is just more cohesive, more healthy, and stronger for our nations. that's what I envision, and that's what I hope for. And by me speaking out, like that's something I hope to instill in my nieces, my nephews, young people across the nation, that that they should be a part of this, and we should make space and place for them to be a part of decision making and advocating, and then respect them. Not just make space for them just to be there, but respect them and actually include them in those processes.
Yeah, because that's sort of like the campaign speech, right? It's like the voices of the young people, and our young people are going to be the leaders of tomorrow. But then when it boils down to the actual meeting room or to the actual governance stuff, it's like you're just told to sit there and be quiet.
Yeah, I've come across, like, in a lot of Indigenous political structures and institutions, they'll have like a youth council in place. And when I've asked those young people, like, what exactly is your role? They said, well, they'll give us funds to get together and talk. But then when we want to do something, or if there's an issue or something we want to take on, there's no support. So it's like a checkbox, like their token, that we have youth there, check.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we need to instill things in place that will include them and not just have them be there. Because our young people are so fierce.
Yeah.
They're so brave. They blow my mind. They inspire me.
Yeah. Yeah, so based off your experience, because you're coming at it from a lot of experience, like a lot of frontline experience, a lot of political experience now, just in the past 5 years, you're sort of thrusted into this position. So your knowledge base is really sound because you were there. You were actually there sitting at the table with settler colonialism. Like you even sat with the Premier of Saskatchewan and his whole staff, and even Trudeau, and even with Indigenous governance people. And you travel the world and you talk to universities now and all these things. So you have a really good grounded insight on how things can change. So I really like that.
I guess the most ideal outcome, it would have been people actually working together and seeing value in what they have to offer. I say that in a way that we have a lot of educated Indigenous people, and we have a lot of motivated even Indigenous people, but they're fearful to speak out just due to possibly their employment or the structures of the institutions that they work within, or just even the lack of support in their community, that they don't feel heard. But I've come across so many people that have good ideas on what they could do, but they also ask the question, what can we do to help? And I have some ideas, and some of those ideas are just shared from other people sharing their ideas. And I try to turn it back on them, because I don't know the individuals. I don't know who they are, what they're about at times. And so I ask them, what is it that you think you could do to help? What are some of the ideas or the skills that you can offer? And an example is this young girl named Zola. This young lady named Zola from the East Coast, who approached me on Instagram. And when the verdict came out of not guilty, she asked if she could make an illustration of Colten. And she sent it to me before she wanted to post it. And that was something that she could do and offer to the cause, with her creativity. This is something that she could offer, and so she did. She went forward. She made that connection. She introduced herself, and then she shared her work, and then asked for blessing. So she worked with my family as opposed to just going rogue and doing, as she saw. But the fact that she shared that with us, and it let us know that we weren't, like I said, that we're not alone when we do things. And when I gave the blessing, it's actually one of the most viral photos that you see, is that cartoonish looking character of Colten with that brick background that says Justice For Colten. And you see that everywhere. And that happened, over 2 years ago when she came out with that illustration, and it's now attached to the movement. It's now attached to the cause. People, when they see that, they know that's Justice For Colten. And just in the last 2 months, when I was out in Montreal before COVID exploded, I actually got to meet Zola. She walked up. She was very, very shy, and she introduced herself. And I made the illustration, and she showed me the book, and I instantly started crying. Like I just hugged her because there wasn't. I couldn't find the words to express my appreciation for her support, but it's how she went about and how she did it. That introduction and building that relationship and just including us in her work and the decisions that she made. And it was just a really incredible moment to meet her and to be able to thank her. And so now we're still connected. And that's one of the things I tell people, like, when people ask what can they do to help, I'm like, well, think about what is it that you can offer. Is it on the creative side of, art, music? Is it in terms of having discussions, even at home at the kitchen table with your family members, informing them on what you learned, asking your teachers in school, can we learn more about this? Can we watch this film? Can we talk about this? You guys, especially the youth, have such a powerful voice that they can actually call on actions and inquire about more things than I feel like I did when I was younger.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. Like saying that everybody could contribute to the cause in general, and it's just a matter of them being real with how they could contribute.
Mm-hmm. So I think that definitely would have helped. When we lost Colten, I didn't know what to expect. And even still to this day, I still don't know what's going to come up. I don't, my family and I, we don't have all the answers. The only thing I knew was when we lost Colten was we needed a lawyer. We needed somebody who knew this system, who knew the language, who knew our rights, that could help us navigate it and explain it to us, because I didn't know what was going to happen or what we could be doing or should be doing. And then, so that's something I tell people is, if there is an injustice or a hardship happening in your community or in your area, or, you read in the news and you think, man, that family needs this, or something like this would help them. I wonder if they know about that. If anything comes to mind that you think would help this family through their hardship, reach out to them, introduce yourself, introduce who you are, where you're from, where you're coming from, and what it is that you can either offer them or suggest to them. Because a lot of our families, I know for us, we didn't know what we were going to go through. We didn't know what a murder trial entailed. And then even afterwards, going to Ottawa and meeting with the federal government and all these various ministers, we had to inform ourselves as to who is this person, what position do they hold, how can they help us, what can we talk to them about. The United Nations, what can the United Nations do for Justice for Colten? What can it do for the issues at hand? So we're constantly thinking of, what can we be doing? And so every individual out there, if you have an idea that can support somebody and what they're going through, reach out to them.
Yeah, because there's almost like, one thing that really bugs me with people is like, well, I won't say with people, but with like leadership and certain perspectives people have, is that we don't work like Indian people don't work, or we don't work hard enough. But the reality is there's no shortage of work. Like, we're doing so much, and people could always contribute. People could always find a way to contribute to the cause and help people, help one another. But we all can contribute in our own way. We could all, dedicate time to helping causes, or helping our community, or helping our families, even on that level. So there's no shortage of work, and that's really cool. You're highlighting that, is that anyone could contribute in their own way, the best way they know how, and that we need more of that.
Yeah, I had an individual come up to me after one of the film screenings, and he's like, what you guys could have really used? You guys could have really used a media relations person to help you with navigating that. And I'm like, yeah, we probably could have, like, and that's something, I'll make note of and inform, like the next family or the things going on, like maybe this will be helpful. But I don't wish this, like what we went through. I really wish that no family ever had to go through what we went through, because it's one thing to lose somebody, but to lose them in that way and then have to go through this system and this process, and even the person who gets designated as a spokesperson for that family, that's a hard role, because you're not only grieving the loss of somebody, but you're facing battles and situations that you never thought you'd have to, and then to have to speak about it. Because I think that's the hardest part, was in order to put pressure on these systems, we have to speak out.
Yeah.
We have to speak out, and that's a big responsibility, but I think it's a responsibility that we all have. It really shouldn't fall on just one person. We should all speak out, and that's what, social media is useful in that way. We're able to communicate and get the word out there and coordinate. Like, thanks to Idle No More for teaching us how to mobilize and organize in that way, and they continue to help with various causes. But in order to address a lot of the issues that our people are going through with the different institutions, like, you have to speak out. And so it's just knowing, sometimes it's hard to put into words what you're thinking and what you're feeling, but I think if it always comes from a good place, from your heart anyways, the message will be there, like that energy will be there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that energy is important. I think like just the past few years, the past 10 years, there has been this outburst of energy from multiple Indigenous peoples and Indigenous issues and people who are facing challenges, and it really creates a lot of change. It really creates a lot of wake-up calls for people, and more of those are needed.
Yeah, no, I laugh. When I first started speaking out, I would just speak. Well, even now, actually, I just speak. I don't have like a speech or a script or something that I read, but after I speak, I never remember what I just said.
Yeah.
And I have to ask Lyle too at times, like, did I make sense? What I said? And he goes, yeah, you made sense. You talked about this and that. And I'm like, because I don't remember, because I speak directly from my heart, from my spirit that speaks. It's not something that can be really written. And I think that's how people feed off that energy and take that energy, is if you are honest and truthful.
And people pick up on that for sure. Yeah.
I was told I'm always angry. And even a classroom of students, I went to talk to them about just advocacy work, what it's like to be an advocate. And I was like, does anyone have any questions? And they all got shy. And one boy raised his hand. He goes, we're all scared to ask questions because we heard that you put people in their place. I was like, oh no, only unless you need to be put in your place.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good conversation to have, because people do tend to assume that because a lot of young people, well, even in my work, like talking about colonialism and decolonization, people tend to think I'm like this asshole that's really mean and really aggressive. And when some people meet me, it's like I'm always joking around, like, how me and Lyle and you can just joke around when we're hanging out, right? We're like the least serious people the majority of the time. And I think like when people hear messages, they interpret it as angry. They interpret the passion as angry.
Yeah.
And people tend to forget that we're human beings and we have families and we love to play jokes and tell jokes. And yeah. Yeah, and I think I scare a lot of settlers too, like when they actually meet me, because they see my posts and my critiques, which is basically my PhD career, right? And they think, oh, Mylan hates us, or Mylan's an asshole, but then no, I'm not. Like,
yeah, well, it's funny. If you follow my Instagram page, like all my pictures are of me smiling or laughing or with family or with friends. And then I laughed because one of my friends told me, like, have you ever Googled your name? I said, no. Like, who Googles their name? So anyways, we checked it out, and all the images you ever see of me on Google, I look totally pissed off.
Wow. And that's all the media, right? The media picking those images and putting that image out there.
Yeah. So, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's why I wanted to sit with you and have this conversation, because I feel like there's also an injustice that people don't get to see and experience the real you, see what you do and see how you live your life, because there's more to you than just what is showing up on the stage at times. And that's why I really wanted to hold this space to get your message, your identity, and your beliefs out there too.
I really appreciate this opportunity. It's been a refreshing conversation. Like, I know we talked a bit about politics and about justice, but also talking about family and powwow and just things that bring us a little bit of laughter and joy. Like, this has been a totally different conversation than I'm used to having, and I wish conversations were more like this than they usually are with people, but I don't know. I guess it's easier talking with family and talking with friends, and just like you said, being a little bit more in that chill mode.
Yeah, totally. Definitely wanted to foster the chill mode, but yeah, I see what you're saying. Like when there is a panel or there is some sort of lecture that needs to be given, we don't necessarily get to have this flow and this energy. Yeah. Cool. Is there anything you'd like to add? Any shout outs you'd like to give? Anything like that?
I just like to shout out to Jade Tootoosis.
Yeah.
My
we need to get him on the podcast.
My quarantine partner.
Yeah, the quarantine partner. The dishwasher. Yeah,
the dishwasher / cook / grocery runner.
Yeah. Well, Lyle's been influential with you. He's been with you through the whole struggle too, and you do give him shout outs even when you do official Justice for Colten stuff too all the time. So, yeah.
He's all right. He's all right. I gotta humble him a bit. He's listening.
He's okay. Yeah, we should, when things blow over, we should all get together and podcast together and have conversations like this in person.
Oh, I don't know if the world can handle a gathering, an official full gathering of everyone. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to edit out all of Lyle's jokes.
You just have to, like, a long air horn beep as he's talking. No. But no, I look forward to whenever this, hopefully, this COVID pandemic lifts and people are well and safe and we can gather and all eat off the same cutting board at your place.
That's our new flow. I literally put on our shopping list, we need more cutting boards because I don't think I'm going to stop eating off them.
It looks super bougie when you sent me the picture. I'm like, real nice looking cutting board. I have one of, like, the plastic ones from Dollarama with the...
Yeah, this with melt spots on it.
It totally does. What the heck? Oh, good times. No, this is good. This is good. Thanks for the chat and the invitation.
Yeah, no problem. So what I'll probably do is I'll put some links up on the website for Justice for Colten and things like that. And anything else you want me to put up there, just send to me and I could post it up there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, this was good. I look forward to seeing how you edit it and how it all turns out, because we've talked for a while. I don't know how long podcasts are supposed to be.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it flows there, I really like it. I really like this one. And yeah, I'll definitely send it to you to give it a once over and we'll go from there.
All right, cool, Mylan. That sounds good.
Great. Okay, talk to you soon.
All right, take care. Bye.